and welcome to the Community Voice Channel. I'm Ivy2, your host, and today we'll be interviewing Senator Dr. Jeff Gordon, who is the 35th State Senate District Representative for 13 towns. And today we will be interviewing him about his time as a legislature and about certain key issues that voters should know about in this upcoming election season. So, hello, welcome, Senator Gordon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here today.
Of course. So, you're coming up on the completion of your first term as a state senator representing the 35th District. What is something that voters should know about you?
Well, one of the things they should know about me is that in addition to being a senator, I am a practicing doctor. So I do get referred to as Dr. Senator. So I understand a lot about health care, health insurance, public health, and I serve on the Public Health Committee. But the other thing that I try to remind people is I served 16 years in Woodstock Town government, chaired Planning and Zoning Commission. So serving in government and interacting with people and working with people is not new to me at all.
So as a Republican member of the CT State Senate, how have you been working to get things done in a bipartisan way in a Senate that is largely Democratic?
Well, it is. There is 24 Democratic senators and 12 Republican. The way I look at it is there's 36 senators. I don't always look at party. I look at what I can do to get things done. For example, last year and this year, I worked with the Senate President Pro Tem and the chair of the Insurance Committee, both Democrats, on major health insurance legislation that got passed and the governor signed. So I can work across the aisle, and that's what you really need to do, because if all you do is just partisan politics, you're going to get zero done. Sometimes there are partisan politics, but most of the time I'm there to try to get the job done, and I'm working with all sorts of people, and a lot of people come up to me and talk with me about issues and if I can work with them, and I'm always happy to talk with people, see what I can do, because at the end of the day, we're there to work with people and work for people, not for ourselves, and that's how I always view it.
Nice. So now we can go into some key issues for voters. Firstly, on gun violence and reform. So considering the recent assassination attempt on former President Trump, what are your views on gun reform as it relates to preventing gun violence?
Well, gun violence is not an easy thing to get a control over. If it was, would have been solved already. One of the main things that I look at is what we can do for those who accessing guns who have any type of mental health issue or concern. There are laws about that. Connecticut has laws about that. Another aspect is no matter what laws we may enact about gun safety and gun violence, criminals still get their hands on guns illegally, and that's a major issue that's difficult to get a handle on, although working with the federal government, I think there's ways to partner for that. But also at the end of the day, we have to be extremely mindful that there is the constitutional right to legally have a gun, and we can't infringe upon that. The U.S. Supreme Court has supported that right. So it's a balancing act. There have been steps that have been done. There have things I've supported, things I have not supported. I think there's more the state should do, and I'm looking forward to next year what more we can do, really drilling down to a lot of mental health issues that seem to drive a lot of gun violence. And there's more we should do, and I think there's more the federal government should do, working with states like Connecticut.
So on the terms of health, you being a doctor, supporter of public health, and member of the Public Health and Appropriations Committee, there are a variety of bills that you've sponsored and supported to improve the health and safety of Connecticut residents. However, there was a bill raised that prohibits adverse actions against healthcare providers who provide healthcare services such as reproductive healthcare and gender-affirming healthcare. It also prohibits healthcare entities from discriminating against providers for delivering such services. You voted not in favor of recommending this bill pass in the General Assembly. How do you reconcile with not voting to safeguard healthcare providers as a doctor and healthcare provider yourself?
Well, that bill had a couple of parts to it, and I made it very clear during my statements on that bill that there was one part that I did not agree with, and that actually might conflict with federal law. It was about what to do when people come in for emergency care. It was trying to, what I thought, preempt federal law, and thus would conflict with federal law. We already have federal laws about emergency care. It's called EMTALA. It's a very good law. I support that. I wanted that part of the bill not in there because I thought legally it would sink the whole bill on a challenge if hospitals challenged it. The other part of the bill I did support. So I thought there was more we could do with the bill to make it workable. Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be a lot of, I guess, willingness to want to do that from others. So I could not support a bill that I thought legally couldn't support itself, but did make it clear I wanted to support the aspects of the bill that I thought got to the problem. And I'm happy this coming session to see what we can do to focus on that. And I've actually had discussions with people about that part of the bill, not the other part of the bill that I had legal concerns about.
Sure. So on women's reproductive rights, what is your stance on defending them?
My stance has always been that I don't have any reason to take that away from women. I view it as a global issue, that I support all of our individual rights, all of our medical freedoms, all of our parental rights. I include reproductive health in that. I made it very clear for years as a doctor that I support a woman's right to decide what's best for her. I don't believe government should be involved in these difficult decisions. That's really a personal medical decision between someone, and in this case, her doctor or healthcare professional. I don't think government should be involved in that. And I don't believe government should be involved in many other types of issues as well, because I believe that's interfering in someone's own decision making. So I made it very clear when I started as a senator that I wasn't going to do anything to weaken the law, lessen the law. I haven't whatsoever. Some of my votes have been to continue to support what is current law in Connecticut, and I'll continue to do that. And I think there's some opportunities we can strengthen the laws, but also make certain that we can strengthen access, which is something I've been working on, and I know very well that's an issue that you have the right, but then can you access the care you need it? And that's something I have been working on, and I look forward to working on next year as well.
So Connecticut lawmakers, such as yourself, are tackling how to create affordable housing within the state. In May 2024, a bill was signed into law that addresses a wide range of housing-related issues, including the development of new housing units, the conversion of nursing homes into multifamily housing, and the administration of rental assistance programs. You voted no. In February 2023, you addressed concerns for a related bill, saying that it doesn't create collaborative, attainable housing for towns because it doesn't consider local decision-making. What solutions do you propose would work to make affordable housing work for our district?
Well, I look at it as affordability because affordable, the term the state uses, is very, very narrow. And that's why most towns can't meet the state criteria after decades, because the state metric isn't the right metric. And I've worked for years on planning and zoning in my town to look at affordability, all the different aspects. In each town that gets to the affordability of land, the affordability to own, the affordability to rent, for example, if that's what you wish to do, at all stages of life. For me, some of the bills I voted against, I was very clear because it took away local decision making and short-circuited what can be done in towns and just made a one-size-fits-all that does not always work and hasn't worked in other states. I've been advocating reforming the affordable housing law. It's called 830G. There's ways we can, and towns are already doing some of this. They don't get credit for it, and then they don't get the state support. One of the things I've advocated for is that the state really wants to help towns and cities. It needs to really smartly and better use the money it has that it's spending, and really target some of it for some of the projects, some of the efforts in various towns that could make a difference. For example, it's great to build housing, but if towns don't have the infrastructure, developers aren't going to want to build. The state can partner with the town to provide those resources. Money for sewer, money for transportation, for example, money for the roads that are needed. But the state doesn't always do that. And if it's left up to towns, especially small towns in our part of the state, they're just not able to fund that. So that's one of the things that I've been advocating for. I was on a meeting today talking about affordable housing with some folks in state government. Some other things we can do is make certain that the state recognizes that every town's unique. So what may happen in one town may be different from what should happen in another town. Don't make a one-size-fits-all, because that does not work. Partner with each town, each city, see what works and doesn't work with the people who live and work there. You'll find a lot of very good creative ideas, but the state doesn't really recognize that. It really should. So I'm working with folks to see what we can do to move things in a different direction and better target the resources that the state has to make things happen. Because just because we may pass something on paper doesn't mean it works in the real world. So I'm really looking at what to do. And local decision making is valid and very important. For example, if you want to build housing and the state says build it in this town, maybe that's not the right place to do it. Maybe it's the next town over that's better to build it for various reasons. And this is what I'm trying to encourage state government to do. And in fact, it is a bipartisan effort that I'm working on with people to see what we can do to move things forward. And it's going to be very exciting next year because we're going to be delving into it again, and I look forward to that.
Sure. So can you explain your efforts towards creating the largest personal income tax cut in state history?
Well, I'm proud to have been part of advocating for it, working for it. I certainly voted for it and was glad the governor signed it. It's been, I think, since 1996 there was an income tax cut. That's a long time ago. It really is historic. Low, middle income families. At the same time, we increased the earned income tax credit. So that's going to help a lot of low-income families as well. And we added further tax breaks for retirees and seniors. Another 100,000 seniors are going to benefit from that. So it was overall part of a tax package. As a member of the Appropriations Committee, we didn't say, okay, here's the tax policy, but we had to make certain it could fit into the budget. And I was working with folks. This was really a big bipartisan effort, and working with the governor. And I was advocating for it and working with people and seeing what we could do to make certain that when we created the budget for 2 years, those types of tax breaks could be quote unquote paid for and fit into the budget. And we were able to do that. And this year, I was working to defend those and make certain that we continued to keep those in place and not backtrack at all. And that we needed to do this year, and I was happy to defend that. It really is going to help a lot of people, and that's good. That's what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm. In February of this year, you, along with Senators Kevin Kelly and Eric Berthel, proposed a bill to increase the qualifying income thresholds for the full Social Security benefits deduction from the personal income tax. What exactly is the goal of this bill?
Well, the goal of this bill is to make certain that more people can benefit from the program. One of the problems we find is that some of these programs are in place and then they don't get looked after to see, okay, do they need to be adjusted over time? Inflation happens every year. So what can happen is it may sound good 1 year, but then sometime later, we need to be helping more people because some of these thresholds are just not keeping up. So we look to see what we can do to help more people and also make certain that we don't get into certain what we call cliff situations where if you're 1 cent over the threshold, suddenly the rug gets pulled out from under you. So some of these programs, we look at phase-ins to make certain to make it easier for people that if their incomes are higher, but they still need the help, they're still able to get some of the benefits, and then it phases out as the income goes up. That's what we were looking to do for a bill like that, to see what we could do to help more people, to really keep up with what's been going on nowadays with really a lot of high cost of living. And that was a good bill, and I was proud to sponsor it with my colleagues.
So that bill has had no movement since it was referred to Joint Committee on Finance, Revenue, and Bonding in February of 2024. Do you have plans to move forward with this bill if you're elected to another term?
Yes, I would move forward with it, and I do have plans. One of the things that I've learned a long time ago when I was in town government is that sometimes you're not successful the first swing at the bat. Doesn't mean you give up. Not discouraged, it just means you roll up your sleeves and you find a different path forward. So we weren't successful this year, but we certainly had our voices heard, and a lot of people were aware of this bill. Certainly a bill we're going to look to see what to do, and hopefully we'll get more people on board. There's some projects that take years to get passed. I'm hoping that won't be the case, but yes, it's on my list of bills to see what we can do and take another effort next year and round up more support and advocate more for it.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain your work with veterans?
Well, I'm proud to do work with veterans. I'm a member of the Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. I'm the ranking senator, so I'm in the leadership of that.
What does that mean?
So when you're a ranking member, it means that you're in the minority party, but you are in the leadership of the committee, along with the chairs. So there's a member from the House and the Senate who are chairs, and a ranking member from the House and the Senate. So there's 4 of us in leadership. So we help set what we're going to do for that committee, help guide it, what bills we're going to take up, advocate for the bills, try to see what we can do to get them through. But also the work I do with veterans is out in the community. where I'm out in my towns. Northeast Connecticut has a proud tradition of a lot of people who work in the military and a lot of veterans and veterans' families. I go to a lot of veteran ceremonies, and I go to a lot of American Legions, VFWs. So I'm always talking and liaising with veterans, so that's part of the work I do as well. And it's important constituent services so we can connect veterans with the services that they deserve and they've earned, but also help them connect from the federal level where I can work with the senators and the congressmen to see what we can do at that level as well. So I asked to be on the veterans and asked to be the ranking senator on it because it's an important committee as far as work I would like to do and work for the district.
Mm-hmm. I believe you proposed a property tax for veterans, like a tax cut, was it?
Yes, so I was one of several people who proposed bills for veterans who are 100% certified disabled. That's a designation that comes, that's given to them, usually by the VA system. Mm-hmm. Those folks who are 100% disabled, they're not able to work. And a lot of them do have financial difficulties as a result. And benefits they may get from the federal government only goes so far. So when we hosted last year a big forum where we heard from veterans all across the state, this was the #1 issue for them. And it's been a project for multiple years, even before I became a senator. So I was proud to sign on to it, proud to help be one of the leaders to push for this. It was a bipartisan bill, and we were able to get it through. And it's good. It's going to help veterans. It's not the only thing we're looking to do for veterans, but it was an important bill, and again, it was recognized by a lot of veterans groups that this was a priority for them. And I'm glad that we were able to get it through. I don't think anybody opposed the bill, if I recollect it.
So now just a series related to one specific question. So how do you plan to continue supporting responsible tax relief?
Well, there's two parts of that. One is we need to be very careful what we do imposing new taxes. And taxes just aren't income tax, but sales taxes is a big one, and that's very important. But there's also taxes on businesses, and they take that and they pass it on in the price of their services and their goods. And that hits people as well in the pocketbook and in the wallets. So one of the things I'm very mindful of is don't make things worse. It's a high cost of living state in Connecticut by whatever metric you measure, just not with inflation. There's a high property and tax burden in many towns, and people feel that. The state has a responsibility not to add to that burden. What I would like to do is continue to defend the tax cuts that are in place and not backtrack those, but then see what further we can do to be of help. For example, I'm a big advocate of making certain the state better funds public education, K through 12. That's a major driver of property taxes in every town and city. I believe the state should do more to fund that to help towns and cities, and if it does it, that's less of a push to increase property taxes. And we did do a lot of that last year to help increase funding. In fact, we stopped a lot of cuts, and especially to a lot of my towns who are going to get hit with a lot of education cuts. We stopped those. We found hundreds of millions of dollars more in the budget for public education. We defended those this year very strongly. And I'm hoping next year we can do more, for example, reform special education to better help towns pay for those costs. That lessens the tax burden at the municipal level.
Yeah.
But I think there's more the state can do as far as a lot of its policies, and looking to see what more we can do to kind of cut some of that. But we can't get rid of taxes. We have to, have some government revenue. But there's smart ways of doing that, but also smart ways of spending the money so we can make the taxes we do collect more meaningful, stretch the value of it. So we have to ask less of money. I agree with what the governor said. The governor says he doesn't want to tax people more. He wants more taxpayers, meaning he wants more people in the state working, in the state spending their money, more businesses in this state, because then we broaden the tax pool and don't have to up taxes because we can bring more taxes through economic development.
Is there anything that you can do as a lawmaker for mill rates? Because sometimes they're rising, as I'm sure you know. Is there anything you can do in the Senate?
There's very little we can do unless we capped mill rates. The problem is if you cap property tax mill rates, how are the town's going to make up the money? That means the state has to pay. There's been talk, for example, we did cap, or it was before I was a senator, there was a cap on the mill rate for vehicles. It's a high number. But if we were to drop that cap, the state has to make up the revenue because most towns can't otherwise provide revenue beyond property taxes. So sure, we could cap that, but then we have to provide more support. I believe that if we provide more support for the number one driver of property taxes, public education, that lessens the pressure on the property tax. And that's what the state can really do to help mill rates, and I advocate for that.
So along with funding for public education, how do you plan to continue supporting health and safety?
Well, one of the things I continue to do is making certain that, number one, for health, people can get the care they need when they need it. I was proud to be a leader in last year and this year in some major legislation to rein in some of the things insurance companies do to delay or deny care, which is not good for the health of people in this state, and we passed those bills. Also looking to see what we can do to further that and further make certain that the state can do resources, for example, to fund the public health departments that are out there all around the state who do a great job. We need more support for that to really get the health care out for that. From a public safety point of view, we need to do two things that I've been advocating for long before I was a senator. Number one, let law enforcement do the jobs that they're trained to do, to help be proactive going after those who commit crimes and responding to those who need help or might be a victim of crime. And the second is making certain that there are consequences to people who commit crimes. And we shouldn't be weakening those laws, because if you just get a slap on the back of the hand, you might just go and continue to commit crimes. We want to make certain those who are committing crimes, especially heinous crimes, serious crimes, there's a consequence to that. And I've been advocating for that, but it comes down to a lot more resources for police officers and letting them do what they're trained to do.
How do you advocate for small businesses and nonprofits?
Well, for small businesses, and I'm proud to this year get 100% rating once again from the business communities in the state for my support, is to make certain we can have a better business community. This is a high-cost state to do, to have a business and start a business. Every metric shows that. Even the governor recognizes that. One of the things we can do is lessen a lot of the taxes and regulatory fees. I've been someone who's been advocating for that. We hear that a lot from the business community. One of the other things I was advocating for, and this helps nonprofits, is the cost of insurance for employees. More and more businesses and nonprofits can't afford it. I've been advocating last year and this year for something called associated health plans, where they can band together and in large numbers leverage negotiation to get good health care for their employees. Unfortunately, those bills got shot down. It was a bit of a political fight, but that's something I strongly advocate for, because that will really help lessen financial burden on nonprofits and on small businesses and help their employees. And in the budget last year that we created, we did up funding for nonprofits and looking to see what realistically more we could do, but we got to stay within our spending caps, which are law. And even the governor advocates for those spending caps.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I think one of the things that people have to realize is that it's fine when we talk about supporting businesses. They create the jobs in our communities. The vast majority of small businesses in this state are small businesses. And they're the ones that are in the community. The owners likely are living in the same community. They contribute to a lot of things that support the community. So supporting businesses has huge ripple effects for the state and for every town and city. And that's why I'm always advocating for small businesses, because without them, we wouldn't get the revenue, we wouldn't have the jobs, and then where will we be?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for watching CVC Interviews. Today we interviewed Senator Dr. Jeff Gordon, and in November he will be on the ballot for this year's upcoming election. So thank you for watching, stay informed, and be an educated voter. Good night.